hello. Hello people. I guess this is a video that I'm making. I wanted to do some sort of like, I don't know, YouTube thing, like thought documentary, experience documentary, because I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I'm having a lot of interesting thoughts, and I'm doing a lot of interesting things, and if I could keep a record of those experiences and those thoughts, they'd be very cool to look back on. And I'm driving home from my girlfriend's house, and I was thinking about an interesting thing that I've been looking into, mostly revolving around the steroid epidemic in the United States. And I do mean epidemic, because it's a rising issue, especially in young people. And I think, like, I feel myself exposed to it a lot more, like being at college. Like, I see, like, going to the gym more, getting really into it. Like, I see dudes where I'm like, holy, that's not natural. That's insane. Like, that guy's crazy. And it comes with a level of respect too, because I'm sure there's lots of gearheads who look like shit because they don't put in the work. But like, being surrounded by it makes me, it's been the forefront of my mind. And it seemed like I kind of started backtracking from that original observation, and started thinking about it more from a societal perspective, thinking like taking steroids is a really, really big decision for somebody to be making. I mean, it has a long and committed series of side effects, and it's not like something where, like with other drugs, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm gonna do this drug like one time and it'll be what it is, and then I'm gonna stop. Like, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna become a regular thing. Like, no alcoholic goes into it and goes, oh, I'm just gonna become an alcoholic. But steroids, they have a lot more weight to them and a lot more commitment, because you go on a full cycle, you do this whole thing to your body, and then if you stick with it long enough, you're gonna need to become dependent on it your whole life. And it's a big commitment with a lot of health risks. And for something that seems so shallow to most people, an aesthetic of a certain way of looking, and it got me thinking. I think young men and boys are starting to have to deal with things that women have been having to deal with for decades. Unrealistic standards in looking. I mean, if you look at the ideal male physique in the early 2000s action movies, it was very easily obtainable. You go to the gym for 2 years, and that's kind of what you would get. Where now it's just completely insane. I mean, the one clip that I get shown over and over again as a comparison is the Aquaman movie, and the one scene where he's shirtless. Like, you need obvious CGI or steroid usage, PED usage, in order to gain a physique like that. Like, that's a very, very impressive physique. And yet people somehow still look at that and go, oh yeah, that's mid. Like, here's all the things that are wrong with it. Relating back to an inflation in standards, physique inflation, that men have started to have to deal with in certain years. And I have multiple friends with body dysmorphia, or who are starting to deal with these issues, because it's everywhere, right? I mean, if you own any social media, like, I'm only really a YouTube guy, and I still get slammed with it. If you have any social media, you're gonna be presented with jacked dude after jacked dude. And where women have had a couple decades to develop coping mechanism as technology evolved, right? It really started with the TV. I don't know where I read this, but it really started with the TV. You started seeing mental health issues like anorexia or self-esteem issues really crank up in the invention of the TV, because that's when it started getting pushed into their faces. And women had a couple decades to develop these coping mechanisms and learn how to accepting of themselves. Now, not saying that it isn't difficult, like it's still very hard. But with men, this is kind of, I feel like this is coming out of left field, and with technology and social media already so developed and in our faces, it's ever so more difficult for young men to deal with something like this, because we have no strategies. We've never needed to have any strategies. I say we. I mean, I'm lucky that I haven't had as many issues with this, because I think I'm pretty conscious about what's happening. How do I think about myself? Where society is and how I relate to the rest of that. But I mean, I see it in things like my brother who's starting to get into working out, but like he'll criticize a photo that we take to no end. And granted, that might be because he's a growing teenager, and teenagers are self-conscious inherently. But I don't know. I feel like I didn't really have to deal with that when I was his age, even a couple years ago, which is crazy that we're talking in the span of 4 years. 4 years. So I also wasn't as exposed to the gym culture as he is now, because he has both our cousin Jack and me. We both go to the gym a lot. So he's very much exposed to it. I don't know. I don't think it's a very commonly talked about thing. I mean, people talk about how Barbie dolls are unrealistic and your organs would get crushed if a Barbie doll was that thin, but nobody really talks about superhero figures being a completely unattainable physique. And like, I wonder where it's going to go from here, because like people already are dying at age 30, 40 from heart attacks, from oversized hearts, and a host of other issues from steroid abuse. Like, where do we go from here? Does the bar get even crazier and crazier, or are we gonna learn something? So that's the rant for today. I don't think there's enough awareness. I mean, there's awareness on the steroid side, but that hasn't really helped, because people just hop on steroids. That's the end of it. So yeah, that's it.